It was in art and design.
Art and design. Okay. And from here I graduated and went to Chelsea School of Arts in London.
So how did you come up from Southport College and get yourself within the industry and start your career?
Well, I mean, the thing that Southport, it was. Southport was a wonderful kind of liberation for me. I'd been halfway through sixth form at grammar school when I was effectively expelled, and so
what was you expelled for?
I used to teach. He hit me first, though, in all fairness. I was
self-defense.
Yeah, he hated me really. He was funny because he was actually a friend of my parents. He was Jewish and he was in the Communist Party, and he took a particular dislike to me. But I think by today's standards, I would qualify as a model pupil now. But then I was the worst kid in the school really, and so they couldn't cope with me, so they told me I couldn't come back. And so that summer, because I was also academically ungifted, I got four O level. So I wasn't, but I wanted I desperately wanted a further education. So because I could paint and draw, art school was clearly going to be my salvation really. So we looked around, and Southport accepted me, I think. And I think I could have got into Liverpool. I wanted to come. I was attracted by the idea of coming somewhere that wasn't Liverpool, really, I think. I don't really know why. And in fact, I was away. I spent a couple of years having these catastrophic kind of hitchhiking holidays when I was 15, 16. So my mum actually came for my interview here. And I think maybe they wanted my mum. They thought they were.
And you turned up and you were like, "Who's this lad who we ended up with?"
We thought we were getting this red-haired old Jewish lady. So it was my mother who got into Southport technically. Particularly the first year. The reason I think that so many art students, certainly from my generation, go into different areas is because what art school gave me, and particularly Southport gave me, was a way of looking at the world, a way of seeing that everything is important, just really opened you out, it was a true education in the kind of classical, in the classic sense of not just, it wasn't a training, it was an education, and it opened you up to the world, really.
It does allow that, doesn't it? It does allow you to be creative at the same time. It does focus you on what you want to do. Now you've done films, TV, radio, stand-up, books, and many, many more, as the advert says. What's been your most favourite one of those fields, and why?
Personally, I like being an author. The last 10 years really I've concentrated on being an author, and the area that I work in is what you technically call literary fiction. So it's a very small group of people who think they're incredibly important. The world doesn't share their opinion, but it's what I write, while it's accessible, is also at the forefront of fiction. The thing that fiction gives you is complete control. That if you're working in film or television, somebody else is always diluting your vision, for good or ill. Whereas with a book, you control every aspect of it, and it's also it kind of satisfies my kind of intellectual vanity.
Which is great, really, considering you went, as you said,
grade 4,
student.
grade 4 English literature, yeah.
One of our other students said
you're listening now, also grammar school. Look at me.
With my books.
Yeah.
One of the students said you're very political in your stand-up, particularly.
Yeah.
Are you political in general life?
Yes, I think that. My stand-up. It was, it was a very. The original Comedy Store opened, more or less on the day that Thatcher came to power, and so, my early years as a comedian were in parallel with that kind of huge era of conflict in Britain's history. And so really, it was, you know, it was a good time to be a political comedian. I don't think, took a kind of purely political line, in that the people who annoyed me really, I didn't know any fascists, you know, I didn't know any Tories. I knew a lot of left-wing people, and I found them fucking irritating. So I mean, my inclination was always to have a go at people who were like me really, whereas other comedians, I mean, particularly, you know, other comedians would go on about Thatcher. I don't really think that I ever did very much, but my comedy was suffused with the kind of rhetoric of the left. And in later years, I think not party political, but I think you have that struggle really. I think as anybody, but as a performer, not to become reactionary. You know, not to become because you get rich, because you got money, therefore you want to defend it, so you start hating the unemployed, you start playing golf with Bruce Forsyth, so you know, your brain is rotted by his incessant jabber.
Higher than a king.
So you know, I mean, I think you fight that battle not to become reactionary. But on the other hand, so I involve myself in a lot of single issue causes. You know, and I try and they're often ones that I think damage my career really. Which you know, in Palestine is the most obvious one, where you know it's an extremely unpopular cause. But also, it's very controversial. Also, animal rights, which again, you know, animal rights. You know, if you ever see, you know, kind of animal rights activists on the bill, you know, they're always kind of like mad people in kind of woolly hats, and you know, I don't know. So I try and I try and do things really that stop me getting comfortable, but also I think, you know, they're just issues that, you know, it's easy when you're an entertainer, you know, to do stuff, you know, children in need for the little kiddies or whatever, and I mean, it's fair enough, but there's a kind of cynical nexus there between helping your own career and helping, you know, I often wonder who's helped most by Comic Relief. I mean, it always seemed to me that Comic Relief was an organisation set up by the poor of Africa to help comedians, really. You know, they sat around in Tanzania, kind of saying,
knock jokes.
Yeah, or no, they say, well, Jimmy Carr really needs some help in his career, maybe.